everybody, thank you so much for joining me. In this video, the focus is this new palette from Bare Minerals, and I kind of consider this holiday collection type stuff here. It's the Aurora Lights palette. If that name sounds familiar, there is a recent BH Cosmetics palette that's come out that's called Aurora Lights, but I got this for $48 at Ulta, and I believe it is exclusive to Ulta, and it's a Gen Nude eyeshadow palette from Bare Minerals. And typically when we see Bare Minerals put out an eyeshadow palette, they call it like their Ready formula, you know, but I think the Ready formula is sort of going by the wayside in favor of Gen Nude. Not that I notice a huge difference. It's a very soft, pigmented, rich, really nice formula. But this is Aurora Lights, and it's an 18 color eyeshadow palette. And I feel like this is for the people who have been clamoring for something really cool toned lately, because it really is full of opportunities to get different cool looks. I know we've got a gold right here in the middle, but really outside of that, there's so much cool going on, from sort of mauve-y type shades, little tinge of lilac and taupe. We get into some very cool silvers, a really rich dark brown and black, these kind of jewel tone looking emerald and navy blue colors at the end. So as I tend to do in review videos, I'm going to be showing you swatches of this palette. I will show you a demo of this look. I'll pull up pictures of a couple of the other looks that I've done. First off, let's just talk about the packaging. It's a pretty compact size. You've got this little sort of constellation looking thing here on the front in rose gold. I don't feel like anything is really oversized here. It's not a cardboard palette. It has sort of a textured feel, almost as though it's meant to feel practically like fabric, but it's not. I'm pretty sure most things could probably be wiped down from this if you got it dirty. There is a mirror on the inside. It does not fold all the way back, which does make it a bit awkward at times for me to hold this up and not get any glare at you. But the shadows are really small. Like if you look at the size of my finger, they're about as wide as my finger, and they go down from about the tip of my finger to the first knuckle, you know? It's not something that bothers me because I really don't feel like I'd be at risk of running out of any of these shades real quick, just because these are the kinds of colors that you need the bare minimum of, I feel like, on your brush to make them work. Out of the 18 shades, 6 of them are matte, and I'll just point those out for you right now. We've got 2 shades here. One's just a cream, one's a little more beigey, a little bit of peach in it. We also have this like kind of dusty lilac shade, this medium brown, and then our black and brown at the end are matte as well. And something I really notice about the texture of the mattes is when you put your brush into them, they can get kind of powdery. So even when I lightly put my brush into those products, I do need to tap off the excess. It could be really easy to go too far with those deepest shades, I think, if you're not doing that. So just something to be aware of texture-wise. I don't notice a lot of powder kicking up at all from the shimmery shades in this palette. With that, I still just very lightly put my brush into it, but there's just a little less of that powdery feel. Now there is one shade in here that's not quite so easy to define, and that's called Stardust. And at a glance, it actually does look like a matte, but it has some very, very, like, the finest shimmer ever in it. Almost like a hint of a gold tone shimmer, but it's not as metallic as everything else that has shimmer in this palette. Definitely some strong metallics in here with the gold and the silver. I see a lot of metallic sheen in this taupe right here, this very cool kind of grayish toned color at the top. It's really kind of a blingy palette. There's a lot of shine in a lot of these colors, and any all matte look that you do, I feel like would turn out to be very, very basic. You know, like you have access to these mattes here, this matte or this matte in terms of kind of a mid-tone, and then your darkest ones. But I feel like this palette is just really tempting you to take one of these shimmery statement type colors and really let it pop. Now, when I first laid eyes on this palette online, I thought, that looks gorgeous, I need it. I opened it up at home, I touched a couple of the shades, and I thought, this is amazing. I started working with it for the first time, and I realized that when it comes to sort of setting up your crease with a mid-tone crease color, there's really only one option. At first, I tried working with Venus in that way because I thought, you know, that's one of those shades that could kind of teeter on the edge of being dark enough. Sometimes colors like that even perform a little darker in application than they look in the palette, but on me, it just seemed a little out of place in that crease area. It just came off a little too light. So really, when I'm wanting to set up my crease and I'm wanting it to be matte, I have one option, and that's the color called Wavelength. Granted, it does a great job. It's a really perfect tone to just kind of get going there in the crease. But once I realized that, I thought, is this palette really all it's cracked up to be? And then I thought, well, you know what you always say, sometimes shimmery shades, when you apply them with a crease type fluffier brush, they'll diffuse out and they won't look as metallic as they would look if you packed them on the eyes, right? So I started playing with colors like Catch Me If or Romp in the crease, and I did find that I could establish some contrast there, and with like a Sigma E25 type brush, you can diffuse them out to where you're taking advantage of their color tone, but not so much their shimmer. So I don't know, ideally would there be maybe more options than just this for a matte crease color? Yeah, I could have maybe done without this shade, or instead of 3 light shimmers here, I would have just taken the 1. But the palette's done, y'all. It's been made, so this is what we've got. And just know that if you're not turned off by the thought of using something that's not totally matte in your crease, you can set things up a little differently and get some different kinds of looks. Of course, these can be crease shades as well. It's just sometimes when you're trying to establish sort of that starting point for your look, you may not always want to go that dark. But overall, in terms of the different finished looks that you could end up with, I feel like this is a pretty darn versatile palette. I mean, just to show you a couple of the things I've done, I've gone very cool and kind of taupey silvery with some of those tones, and I thought that was a really pretty look, and I feel like there's no difficulty getting a really reflective, high shine type of thing going on your lids with this palette. And then in this next look, I did use that Catch Me If, the shade that looks just a little bit hint of mauvey cranberry going on. I used some of that on my crease and my lid as well, and then I layered Meteor Shower, which is very clearly a blue in this palette, but when you start layering that up over Catch Me If, you will see more of a purple look develop. Leave it to me to develop a purple look out of a palette where there is no purple eyeshadow. But it's kind of fun like that, and I kind of respect the fact that you can layer some things up here and get some different looks that you might not have even anticipated. If you've ever tried Bare Minerals Ready formula, or you know, the Gen Nude formula in other little compacts, and you enjoy that, I think you'd like this. If you're a fan of Lorac eyeshadows, I find these to be really comparable to the way those tend to feel and operate, just putting a brush into the product. Definitely plan on a little more powdery kick up when you go into the matte shades. Not so much with the shimmers, but you still do need to use a really light hand with those, because I think a little goes a long way, and you could potentially get easily overwhelmed by some of those if you're not sort of accustomed to building up your look little by little. That's kind of my application comfort zone. You guys have seen me do countless tutorials. I really don't like to just throw a bunch of product on and then figure it out. I like to build up my look a little at a time, so I definitely keep that in mind with this palette. But I want to talk you through the look that I did today. I tried to do sort of a halo eye, and I ended up with a little unexpected wing thing going on at the end, which I'll explain. But I started off using Wavelength in my crease. I wanted you to see how the Soul mid-tone brown in this palette worked just to set up a basic look. That kind of crease shade really is gonna work alongside any of the other colors you want to introduce into your look. I made sure I got that all blended out, and I used a little bit of Delightful, which is a sort of beigey peach around the outer edge. I hadn't really played with that shade yet, but it's kind of helpful in blending things out. And then I used Presto, which is sort of a golden tone light shade, and I used that as a highlight up under my brow. Next up, I went to Dazzle, which is your really dark, kind of walking the line between jade and emerald green, and I started patting that on the outer part of my lid first, getting the most color intensity there, and then continued patting it on the inner part, leaving almost a bit of a gap in the center of my lid. What I'm really getting going here is sort of a halo eye, but not with any additional like products like concealers or anything like that needed. It's the low maintenance halo eye. This is the kind of color that I feel like gives you the slightest hint of green in application. It's just a little deeper, and as it shears out a little bit on the eyes, you see less green. And I wedged that into my crease just a little bit as well to help me blend, but I wasn't looking for a lot of dark intensity there. And then I used the color called Spotlight, which is just off the charts shimmery. You only need a dab of this product, and I dabbed it right in the center of my lid, and I felt like I got a great contrast then with Dazzle. It just really shines. I felt like I needed to do a little extra work, maybe bringing in a bit more wavelength, blending around the outside, getting my inner corner blended out enough, which is always the challenge for me with this kind of look. But then I decided to take Dazzle with a pencil brush and just take that all across my lower lash line, and then I used Spotlight again, just right around my tear duct area to give some added brightness. So this is our finished look. What I ended up adding in liner-wise was actually this one from Urban Decay. It's called Overdrive, and it's a really similar looking green to the green that's in this palette, only maybe a little more green punch really, and I put that in my lower inner rim, and then I decided, what if I just like drew in a little bit of a wing coming off the edge? You know, I was planning to just go across with black liquid liner, but I thought, let's do something different. So I did that, and I topped it off with a little bit of the shadow, which actually took the tone of this pencil down just a notch. And so that's what's happening there on the outer corner. If I knew things were gonna get this interesting, I would have left the camera running for it. But then I just used mascara. I did a coat of the CoverGirl Lash Blast Flourish, and then a coat of the Maybelline Falsies on top of that. For my blush and bronzer, I'm using my Clinique All Aglow palette, and my lip gloss is a shade from the Becca Volcanic collection, and it's called Molten Mauve, and it's really just kind of like a Your Lips But Better type of gloss. This is so much my natural lip color, just with a little added shine and maybe evenness. But yeah, I really wanted to show you guys how that green worked, because that was certainly one of the standout colors to me as I look at this palette. But it is a very deep green, although it does have sheen, and it's got a pretty kind of way of catching the light as you look at it in the palette. Once it shears out a little bit, I mean, it's a pretty subtle level green, I think, on the eyes. But I really like the way it plays alongside that bright pop on the center of my lid. That's really fun. But what do you guys think of this palette? I have gotten a lot of tweets about it, actually. A lot of people have seen it and been interested in it, or you've gotten it and you really like it. Hopefully my comments on it kind of give you an idea of what to expect, but I think those of you who really like a cool tone shadow definitely have something for the holiday season that you might be really interested in. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.